Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Nations Round number 8, driving the Group 2 cars at Saint Croix, the new track, the version A, we'll say new track, the latest fictional track. You can see there, starting from P1, IRT Nisman. I managed to put the car on P2, if not a very good lap to be fair, a 2 minutes 57.1, which was pretty bad in qualifying. This track I only learned a few hours properly before the race, pretty much, with Lightning in the lobby. Kind of got the hang of it a bit with a race practice with him. I really wasn't fully up to speed with the track though. I would have rather have learned it a few days before, but I wasn't going to race it, just decided to do it because I love the Group 2 cars. Got lucky in qualifying because I think a lot of people mess their qualifying lap up, because my first lap was on for a 46.1 to 2 probably, and then I got a corner cut penalty which gave me a 2-second penalty, so I had to lift off back out of that lap, and then I only had one attempt left at a lap. Obviously this wasn't a top 24 star race, so you only had two flying laps in terms of getting laps in. There was no other chance. So once I messed the first lap up, had to put just a banker in on the second lap, and I had to take it really easy. And I didn't even really put a good lap in, to be fair. It was kind of a scruffy lap, but managed to come away with a P2 somehow, which I'm quite surprised how I even managed to do that. I think a lot of people made errors. It's a long track. Obviously a hard track, longer the track is, the easier errors are going to be possible to make errors. So somehow managed the P2 and really reasonably happy with that. And I knew it would be a good race because I know IRT Nisman, very fast driver, very clean also, had many great races with him, so was looking forward to this race. I was really surprised how the pace wasn't really as fast as it was, because I expected to be down in I would say P6 to 8, because I'd only learnt the track literally hours before this race properly. And starting from P2, happy with that, and let's start this race. We're going to go through to the replay camera once the race starts and start the action, watching the replay cameras. As you can see there straight away, the Nissan GTRs seem to be the stronger car at this track, but after I learnt the track in the Lexus, and I didn't want to go back to change cars, because one of the main reasons they were using the GTR was because of its fuel saving ability is a little bit better than the Lexus. And obviously 8 laps, you needed to do 4 laps for the one-stop strategy, so it was going to be a case of a lot of short shifters. Going through turn 1, you can see I made an error straight away, missed the braking point, luckily managed to hang it round the outside and hang on to P2, and just about staying close enough to IRT Nisman to pick up that slipstream. As you see, all the cars are driving through there, a clean start, and no real incidents by looks of it on the first corner or second corner. It looks like everyone's driving fairly clean, and it's a nice clean start in this Group 2 race in the Nations Cup Round Day. Reasonably happy with that straight away. Luckily I got away with that mistake that I made into turn 1. That could have been a disaster, running wide there and getting onto the curb and spinning it, but luckily got away with it. And one thing I have to say is, but how amazing does this game look at this track at night time in these cars, and the sounds, it really does. I really enjoyed these cars, this track. I heard a lot of people say they didn't really like this track, but I actually really enjoyed this track. The problem with it was it's quite a hard track to overtake on. It sounds surprising, but in these cars it was actually quite a difficult track to get a long enough straight to pick up a slipstream long enough to actually make it move. There's no real slow corners in terms of heavy braking zones where the move was possible, because the only real fast zone was, there was a chicane that separated before the heavy braking zone, so you found that you didn't really get close enough into an opportunity. This is the corner I'm talking about. It's a really fast chicane, so you can't overtake into that, and then it's too short a distance to pick up a slipstream, as I pick up a penalty there for running a little bit wide straight away on lap 1, which was a silly mistake. So you see, quite hard, but you can't really make a move there in the overtaking. Then again, you're coming off of a slow corner and then not really a long enough straight to get close enough into a braking zone, and then you're on this straight. This is probably another opportunity, but again, you just can't really get close enough unless you're really revving the car out, and you couldn't really afford to do that in this race because needed to make the fuel last all the way to 4 laps. In the I think in the 24 race, which was 10 laps, some people did the one-stop strategy, which was really pushing the fuel. I mean, it would have been possible in the Lexus, but I think the GTR was probably definitely the choice of car for doing it in terms of 5 lap stints. But even on the 4 lap stint, I had to do a lot of short shifting, and just to try and make sure that obviously I've got reasonable fuel to compare with to the other GTRs in this race. As you can see, an NSX also behind me. I'm not too sure how the NSX is in terms of its fuel. I know the Nissan GTR in front is definitely the stronger car out of the Lexus and the GTR. As you can see, going into the final corner, had a massive moment, lost the rear end, started to slide, but managed to save it. Very reminiscent of the same corner and the same mistake I made in the Group 3 cars, which exactly the same thing happened, where I drifted it and managed to save it. So got away with that, but I got out of that slipstream to IRT Nisman, so had to rev it out a little bit more, not fully revving it, but just short, revving a little bit more than what I would have liked, and using a little bit more fuel up than what I would have liked to try and get back closer to that slipstream and pick it up again. So you can see driving quite aggressive. You can see IRT Nisman obviously thinking the same, trying to push a little bit harder to try and stop myself getting in that slipstream, but I'm getting really close to picking that back up again, which was good to see. It's always good when you can pick up a slipstream fairly easily. Again, it shows you that you've got the pace to battle for this first position. Pretty much, it gives you the confidence to push all the way to the end, knowing that if you can get back into a slipstream that easy, you've definitely got a shout at win for race pace. But these are the type of races I really enjoy, when you're equally matched to another driver. I think with a bit more practice I would have had a bit more speed, but I don't think many people, I'm not too sure what other people, but I don't think many people would have practiced this one as much and been fully up to speed as much in terms of like track knowledge, because it's not a track that has been on a daily race. It's not a track that I think the only time I've driven this was when the update came out, and I drove it at about 50 miles per hour in a Megane Group 4, just taking it really slow and just trying to give an idea and impression on the track. But it is definitely an enjoyable track. I like the flow of it. It's really fast flowing. However, it doesn't open up much overtaking opportunities. You can see there, P1 runs a little bit wide there, and it looks like, did he get a penalty there? I'm not too sure. I don't think he actually picked up a penalty, so lucky to get away with that. And then you can see myself getting very close in that slipstream after that mistake by IRT Nisman. So fully in that slipstream again now. The NSX right behind me and another GTR right behind that, and then there's a bit of a gap to P5 and 6. I'm just starting to drop them a bit now in this early phase of the races, going over the bridge into the right hand corner. A really nice set of corners is. I like the way you can cut a little bit of the green tarmac off there and widen the line into the corner, and look how great it looks again on this game. It looks so lifelike, I have to say. I think it's with the dusk type settings, or late evening settings. It just looks really nice. I like the lighting with the lights on the car. It's probably the best looking game I've ever played, to be brutally honest. When you watch it back on these replays, it looks so nice and everything looks realistic, and that's what I like. I love the way they do the replay cameras. They just have like an understanding of where to place a camera, and that's why I think GT's replays are a lot stronger than pretty much any other game I've come across. The one thing I wish that you could do would have an option to remove the black borders, like a lot of people say it is. That's the only downside to the replays, but I can live with it, and it looks amazing. So we're going to carry on with this action as we come through to the start of another lap now, right on IRT Nisman's back, and you see the NSX really close to me. Everyone doing a lot of fuel saving, obviously. I'm not too sure what the other drivers were doing in terms of their fuel. I just know that I needed to stay in IRT Nisman's slipstream and try and do as much fuel saving as possible. I mean, if I would have known before that the GTR was probably the strongest track, I would have learnt the track in that car. But I just went straight to the Lexus because it's my favourite Group 2 car. Practiced it a bit, and then went into a practice race. Had okay speed with Lightning. It wasn't anything, great. I was still learning the track, and then did this race. So I managed to go into time trial before. I went into time trial after I did the practice race with Lightning and put up a 44.6, I think it wasn't. It wasn't a perfect lap. So managed to get an okay lap in, but it was a consistency I was a little bit worried about. But so far in this race, I'm driving really nice. I like the flow of the track. It feels really nice. You've really got to widen the lines into the corners, chuck it in there, and be smooth at the same time. It's like this corner, you've got to be really aggressive in how you throw the car in to carry the speed all the way through the corner. If you're going a little bit too deep, it just runs off into that gravel down the left, and then you're carrying a lot of speed all the way down this straight. And you see, starting to pick up that slipstream, but this just isn't really an overtaking opportunity. This would have been better if it was a really slow left-hand corner and it didn't flow like that, because with that type of speed you can't, even if you're going into that corner a couple of feet behind another car, it's not an overtaking opportunity. And then because of that corner, it blocks the opportunity into that right hand corner. If that was just one long straight line into that right hander, that would probably be more of an overtaking opportunity, but they obviously decided to break that up like that. But it kind of ruins that one opportunity that I think would be for a good overtake. As you can see now, managed to get rid of the slipstream, but I think the NSX made a mistake behind me, and now I've got a 1.4, 1.5 second lead over P3, and just concentrating on just trying to keep it clean, keep it smooth. You know, to be in this position without really knowing a track fully is really good. You know, I didn't expect this going into this race. I just did this for content. You know, I thought I'll just do it, get an extra race onto the channel, and hope that I can pick up maybe a top 7 or top 8. I really wasn't expecting to be in P2. I think the lobby I was in was helping, but it wasn't a particularly, you know, a super weak lobby. There was still 2,000, I think it was 2,600 or 2,550 or something like that for P1. So there's some good points available in this, and if I can hold on to this P2, as you can see, looking back at myself there as we ride on board with IRT Nisman, pushing really hard close to that wall. And like I say, if I could pick up P2, it'd be some really solid points that would add to my Nations Championship. Although I'm not in the top 24 races, because obviously the UK is the hardest. I think it's quite easily the hardest country to be in the top 3. And I think anyone in the top 10 could have took these top 3 places. A lot of it comes down to luck and races that you choose and stuff like that. So unfortunately, I haven't made that top 24 in the Nations. I could have probably tried to get into the first one, but I didn't think I would have got there. But even then, even if I did, I'm not too sure how it would have gone. But so far in this race, everything's going really well, a lot better than the manufacturer's race, which will be uploaded tomorrow. Obviously, Monza turn 1 standing start wasn't the best option to do. I think I think they should have done it rolling start. I think it would have been a cleaner start if they'd done it rolling. To start Monza from a standing start was a risky strategy, and I think when you see the video tomorrow, you'll agree it should have really been a rolling start. But we'll get to that video tomorrow. I wanted to do this video first because this was just such an enjoyable combination. I really did enjoy driving these Group 2 cars, like I always do. They're probably my favourite cars on the game, even if they're not particularly my strongest car in the game. As you can see there, P4 still holding on in the background. You can see P3 and 4 just out of reach of that slipstream, so building a little bit of cushion up now as I'm starting to put IRT Nisman under some pressure. We've both got, I think at this point, half a second penalty, so exactly in the same position at this stage. It's just what will happen when we go into pits. As you can see, 0.5 seconds for IRT Nisman, and I'm on 0.4, just under 0.5 seconds. So pretty much exactly the same penalties to the end. As he managed to break the slipstream there, I made a slight error going out of the tight right hand there, giving IRT Nisman the chance to break that slipstream, but I'm just getting back into it on the straight. Obviously, the Lexus has slightly better straight line speed, but I've still got to do the short shifting, which is going to probably hurt me a little bit. We'll see when we get to the pits what the fuel is like in a minute. As you can see at the moment, down to about 14 to 13%, and we're coming through to the final few corners before we go into the pits and see what everyone else's fuel like. When I went in the pits, I don't even know if I looked at other people's fuel. I just decided that what I wanted to do was overfill a bit on this stint and try and be a bit more aggressive, because I felt like if I could rev it out a bit more, it might create overtaking opportunities. You know, a lot of it is luck, whether you come out in the right place. You know, you don't really know what other people are going to do, so you have to just try and play it, you know, by what you think is best. As we go into pits, let's have a little look now. IRT Nisman goes in on 10%. I go in on 9%, and the driver behind me goes in on 11%. So not bad fuel consumption there, but considering I was in IRT Nisman's slipstream, it should have been more. But it shows you how strong that Nissan is in terms of its fuel saving. But for this now, I decided to go aggressive, and what you're going to see now is I think IRT Nisman went quite light on his fuel, because we went in pretty much identical fuel. I went nearly to the max on the fuel, just short of maximum, and you can see I actually got outdone in the pits by P3, who comes out ahead, and IRT Nisman actually gained about another second on me. So I'm guessing he didn't put as much fuel in as I did. I didn't really look then to see what his total fuel was that went in. Maybe it was just a couple percent lower than myself, but that means I'm going to have a little bit more fuel now to push. And one thing I needed to do was get past P2 straight away, as he's making a little bit of error, running wide out of that corner, chucking it into this really nice left hand corner. I do like that corner. You've got to be so aggressive for it, but then on the power, really delicate as you put the throttle down. Too much throttle and you start spinning out. It's getting really close to P2. Look how close this is. Pushing hard, trying to put him under pressure straight away, because I find if you put people under pressure straight away, it tends to force some of these drivers into mistakes, and that's what I wanted to do. You can see, making myself seen, making sure he can see me if he's using the view of a mirror, going into this left hand corner really close through there, on the power nice and early. If he gets a little bit loose, I decided to try and hang it round the outside of that corner, managed to get on the power straight away and got myself straight away into P2. So an important move on the first lap out of the pits, start of lap 5, and now I've got to make the move to try and catch IRT Nisman, who's got a 2.5 second lead over myself. Quite a big lead to make up, so you can see what he must have really undercut that fuel quite a bit to get out of there that much ahead, because he only went in the pits about a second ahead. So 1.5 seconds he must have put in less fuel than myself. I decided to really attack that corner, did it reasonably okay, didn't push too hard through there actually. I think it was the next lap that I pushed a little bit too hard, actually going down to second gear, trying to clip the apex of that corner. Really tricky corner that I found that sometimes you go into there braking too late, but then that kind of helps you out in squaring the carve, and then sometimes if you brake too early you get too close to the wall and you have to kind of double turn the corner, and it's a real tricky corner to get perfect. And sometimes obviously if you can run wide by trying to put the power down too early and losing the rear and then having to counter steer it. And another really technical section, this set of corners now, I found that taking a bit of the green Astro and then widen that line in and getting into third gear early without overdriving second gear kind of helped in getting the power down and getting a nice drive out of that corner. And then onto the tyre killer. This is a corner that will kill the tyres. I can imagine that Group 3 cars would absolutely kill their tyres through that corner without as much downforce as these cars. You know, these Group 2 cars, a lot of downforce, carries a lot of speed, and it doesn't seem to affect the tyres as much as what I'm guessing the Group 3 cars will get affected on that corner by. And then into the final corner, you can see he's starting to gain already on IRT Nisman. Managed to gain about 3 tenths straight away since I overtook P2 and got myself into P2. So now it's just about trying to slowly get closer to IRT and see if I can bring that gap down. I've got obviously a little bit more fuel than him. I can rev it out a little bit more, but you can't, if I drive it 100% this Lexus, I won't have the fuel to get to the end. It couldn't do, full 100% of driving for 4 laps. I think when I tested it, you do like 3 3/4 laps pretty much, and it'd run out of fuel. So it's got to be a little bit of conservative, thinking about where I rev it out, thinking about where I short shift. As you can see, driving quite aggressively there, braking nice and early, always making sure that I braked early for this corner so that I could get on the power earlier. Same for this corner. I found that braking earlier, tight line in, and then early upshift into 4th gear really helps. As you can see, P3 runs wide, scrapes into barrier, sparks flying everywhere. He made an error coming out of that corner where he's obviously trying to stay in the slipstream, and that's made myself break that slipstream, and now 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 seconds clear, and slowly gaining on IRT now as we're going through to the midway on lap 6. This is getting really intense. This was the type of racing that I really enjoy, when you're pushing yourself and you've got a really fast driver up ahead who might be in a bit of different situation with fuel. I went for the strategy of running more aggressively with the fuel and trying to push hard all the way to the end. That mistake then by P3 really costly there. He's obviously lost the slipstream, and then that means that his fuel's compromised because he's going to have to use more fuel down the straights to try and stay with other drivers. Obviously I haven't got the slipstream either, so he's in a pretty much same situation as myself, 1.2 seconds behind me, and I'm just getting that gap under 2 seconds briefly then as I'm starting to gain on IRT Nisman. But then out of the corner, different areas on the track. Obviously the Nissan, very good at traction areas. The Lexus is also good, but I think that Nissan was a little bit better on the traction than the the GTR was a little bit better on traction than the Lexus, because every time we come out of slow corners he seemed to gain 2 tenths or so. But then I felt like the straights, obviously the Lexus was a tiny bit faster, and then other corners, fast corners, I felt like they're pretty much equal. It was really a mixture of different ways that the cars were, the abilities of the cars came around, and obviously the driving styles, obviously different lines. I'm probably not taking the optimal lines at this stage because I'm still trying to figure out the track 100%. I think this corner there, I was still making errors. AC, I wasn't really hooking that corner 100% every time because I was trying to take it in too early, the line. I really need to practice. It's just practice really. I could have done with another day to practice this track, to really start getting it into into my mind, the exact braking points. I was having to really concentrate to keep the car consistent, but still doing okay laps. As you see, managed to go with the fastest lap of the race so far, and considering that I had mistakes in it and I'm still having to do a little bit of fuel conserving, it shows that obviously once I'm fully up to speed on this track, I think it'll be a good track for myself. And now 1.8 seconds, so trying to start pushing now because I want to get as close as possible to IRT to put him under pressure on that last lap. This is obviously important because the closer I get to him, the more fuel he's then going to feel he needs to use, and then the higher the chance of him making a mistake on any area of the track. You can see that he's pushing really hard. He's keeping that gap around 2 seconds at the moment, but I'm really trying to force him into some sort of areas of get that down to 1.8 seconds, and then we get to the area of the track where the Lexus will start gaining on the power zone. As you see, down to 1.7 seconds, another purple sector. The lap's going okay so far. I'm starting to gain on him. It's getting down all the time. It's just a tenth here and there, but it's gradually coming down as I've managed to increase that gap to P3 to over 2 seconds. And this is the type of, like I said before, I love these type of races where you've got different strategies, but obviously same strategy but different fuel loads. And I've got more fuel than IRT Nisman. I can drive a lot more aggressive. I'm starting to get into the groove of the track as well. It has taken me a little bit, but now this you see starting to gain down the straight. This is where the Lexus makes up time over the GTR. However, going into this corner, I really tried to be aggressive and cut that. I mean, it was a cut by, it must have been inches on that white line. It wasn't a drastic cut, but I picked up quite a big penalty for that. I think you're going to see in a minute as we go down this straight. And yeah, you can see it's already added it on. It added it on straight away, up to 2.8 seconds and 2.7 seconds, something like that. So over 2 seconds we have a penalty now. And the problem is, I've got P2 just over 2 seconds behind me. So I've just got to keep pushing now all the way to the finishing line. I've got a lap and a bit to try and push and build this gap up enough and keep it around 2 seconds, because a 2.6 second penalty only takes about a second, if that, to get rid of. So I knew that I just needed to keep the gap to over a second to P3, and what I wanted to do was try and push as hard as I can to up to IRT Nisman. If I could try and get overtaking before the finishing line, before the penalties take effect, I'd be really happy. And I feel like it was a little bit harsh, that penalty. Obviously I did cut it, but it must have been by fractions, because the right hand tyre, when I looked on the replay, the right hand tyre must have been centimetres on the white line. It looked like it was touching, but it must have just been slightly over, and that's why I've picked up the penalty. Obviously the stricter settings in FIA, in daily races, that would have been allowed, but again, going over the line with the fastest lap, wasn't a particularly great lap, but still going over the line with the fastest lap and really getting close to IRT Nisman now, down to 1.1 seconds, nearly in that slipstream. You can see he's obviously pushing really hard. This was one of the most intense races I've been in, to be fair. I was really having to concentrate because obviously not knowing the track 100%. It was quite a warm night in the UK, so it was really hot, and I was just trying to keep concentration and trying to push hard, but not push hard enough that you're going to force yourself into an error. As you see, trying to keep it reasonably smooth as I go in that corner a little bit too deep, but you can get away with it on that corner as long as you get on the power reasonably early, and then early upshift into fourth gear there, working our way into the next left hand corner and getting so close to picking up that slipstream. I was really trying to get on it now. I wanted to get as close as I could to IRT Nisman. You don't know if these, if anything could happen at this stage. You could force him into a mistake. He could cut a corner and pick up the same type of penalty as you. So it's so important to try and keep pushing to the very last corner, and that's what I wanted to do. You can see getting so close on this back straight now as we go down through the fast corner and then working our way into the fast chicane. You can see down to about 5/6 tenths of a second. You can see P3 about 2 seconds back from me, about 1.92 seconds behind, and this is really pushing now. This is what I love, driving on a racing game, a sim racing game, and being pushed to the limits. You want to get as close as you can and try and get as close as you can before the end of the racing. So getting in the braking zone, I wanted to be really aggressive. Was a little bit too aggressive, probably lost out a bit on the exit, but again, really just trying to be as aggressive as possible and see if I can make a move on IRT before the end of the track, the lap. But obviously this track isn't really set up at the end of the lap for an overtake, so it wasn't really possible. But I just wanted to really just drive all 100% to the finishing line. I knew that's why I put the fuel in. I wanted to be pushing to the very end of this race. Looking on the replay camera, look how close this is, going into the final few corners of this race. So really close racing with IRT Nisman, and And this is why I like racing IRT, because he's a good, clean racer. He doesn't make mistakes either. Whenever I race, it's very rare that he makes mistakes. So I knew that I'd have to put him under pressure and try and force an error somehow. But you know, sometimes things like that don't happen. As we come now through to the final corner of this race, I've got to get rid of a penalty, and luckily I've managed to keep on it. You can see 1.5 seconds ahead of P3, and I've got to get rid of a penalty. He's also got a penalty to get rid of, which will help me get rid of my penalties. You can see now, look how low the fuel is as well. I only realised as we went down the straight how low the fuel was. Got rid of the penalty, and I actually run out of fuel just before the line, but still take P2. And that was a really enjoyable race. Could have been a faster time. I think it was 2 minutes. Sorry, it was 22:57 or something like that. It was about. I've seen the first race that was on in the day. It was about 9 seconds faster than the leading time, but we both had penalties to get rid of at the end. And there was a little mistake in there. I think I could have been fast. I think with a lot more practice I could have got that time down by 3 or 4 seconds, but I wouldn't have been as fast as some of the other people on this track. I needed to really practice this track a lot more, but coming away with P2 and 2,400 points, cannot complain at that. I think it was 2,400. We'll have a little look as we come to the end of the race, and it tells us what points we got. So let's see now as we come up to the points for that round. Another really enjoyable round, 2,418 points, so can't complain at that. Some solid points for my nations, and that actually bumps me up, I think, into P5 in the UK. Obviously, like I said, P1, 2 and 3 is out of the question now. I think it's pretty much mathematically impossible to get into the top 3 now, so it's just racing for fun. And that's what I'll do on Wednesday's race as well in the Group 3 cars, which is looking quite strong. I think I'm going to use the Mercedes AMG for the Wednesday's Nürburgring race. It seems strong there. It seems like the type of track that suits that car. So I was P1 in the top 10 stars. I doubt I'll be there by the obviously Wednesday, but at least it looks like I've got okay pace for that track. So I'll be just going into that race, looking for a fun race, hopefully a good race to show you all the subscribers on my channel. And then we've got obviously the Wednesday's manufacturers race. I wasn't going to do that race, but the car looks okay there, so I will do that one and try and bump my score up by a couple hundred points, because it's so close between myself and Force. It's going to go down to the final top 24 race where I really need to really put a good result in, and hopefully I can do that to get myself to the World Finals, which is obviously the ultimate goal in this FIA Championship. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I will be back with another video tomorrow, hopefully the top 24 race for the Monza race. Bit of controversy at the start. It wasn't the cleanest start, which you'll see tomorrow, and then hopefully I might be able to get a track guide done for one of the other rounds. It all depends on time. If I have the time, I will do that. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed. Click that notification button so you don't miss any future videos. I do try and upload as much as possible. Apologies for yesterday not uploading the video. I wanted to try and learn that track so I could get this video to you, if that makes sense. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I'll be back very soon.